Welcome to the Cala Builders podcast. Today we are doing a deep dive into a decision that is way more complex than it first appears. We're talking about your driveway.
hmm
It's probably the biggest piece of hardscaping on your property, and that choice between, traditional poured concrete and individual paving stones,
hmm
it's a huge deal.
It is. It really sets the stage for everything else.
Exactly. It affects your curb appeal for decades, what you're going to pay in maintenance, and, what your house is worth when you go to sell it.
Absolutely.
So our mission today is to really distill the key differences, cost, durability, aesthetics, by looking at a pretty detailed material comparison guide. We want to give you the info you need to decide what works best for the, let's say, unique stresses of living here in Southern California.
And our expertise for this comes directly from Cala Builders. They're a full-service construction and remodeling company right here in Los Angeles, and they specialize in high-end residential and commercial projects.
Now, you mentioned they use a design-build model. Why does that matter for something like a driveway? I mean, if you're just pouring a slab, what's the difference?
Well, it all comes down to accountability. It's a
Sure.
single source of it. When one company handles everything from the initial design to the final build,
The engineering, the prep work.
all of it. It means if a problem shows up 5, 10 years down the line, there's no finger pointing between the designer and the contractor. The quality they promise is baked into the entire process, not just the blueprint.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Before we even get to concrete versus pavers, why is this choice so critical specifically here in the LA area?
Right, because if you live somewhere flat and cool, it might just be a simple cost decision.
But we don't. We have some pretty unique challenges, don't we?
We absolutely do. The guide points to 3 major stresses that really impact how these materials behave over time. First, you've got that intense year-round sun,
Constant heat.
which causes thermal expansion and contraction every single day. Second, we have very little rain for most of the year, and our soil. It's heavy with clay, especially in places like the San Fernando Valley.
So it dries out, shrinks, and cracks.
And then, when that rare heavy rain does hit,
That same clay soil just swells up like a sponge.
precisely, and that constant movement, that shrink and swell cycle, is just lethal to any kind of rigid surface. And then, of course, the third thing,
We're in an earthquake zone.
we're in a seismic zone. Even tiny tremors or just the gradual soil creep you see on hillsides in, say, Pasadena or Santa Monica, put stress on a surface that you expect to last 30 years. You need something that can move.
That makes perfect sense. So it's less about just holding up a car and more about resilience. It has to be able to flex with the environment.
Exactly. But you can't ignore the other piece of the puzzle, which is curb appeal.
Mm.
In the SoCal real estate market, that first impression is everything. The driveway sets the tone for the entire property's value.
And since we are talking about this region specifically, it's probably a good time to mention that Cala Builders, the source for this guide, they are a premier concrete pavers contractor.
Right.
They work across LA County and beyond. They're dealing with those hillside lots in Pasadena, the clay in the valley, the coastal air in Santa Monica. This is their backyard.
And that's why this guide is so valuable. It's not generic advice. It's an engineering solution for our specific climate.
Okay, let's get right into that structural comparison then. Rigidity versus flexibility. Because this is really where the long-term cost story begins, right? What happens when the ground actually moves?
It's fascinating when you look at the engineering philosophy behind each one. So a traditional concrete slab, it's all about monolithic strength.
One giant solid piece.
Right. And when it's done correctly, good compacted base, steel rebar, or mesh inside, it is incredibly strong. It can last 30 years.
Sounds great. But you just said rigidity is the problem here. So are you saying this big, tough slab is actually its own worst enemy when the ground shifts?
It is. Because all that strength depends on it staying uniform. The source guide really emphasizes this. Concrete is just inherently prone to cracking when the soil moves. Think of it like a giant brittle tookie.
Okay.
If the ground underneath shifts even 1/8 of an inch, the slab can't bend. It can't absorb that stress. It just snaps.
And once you get that first hairline crack, maybe near the garage door or something, it's there forever. It's a permanent flaw.
A permanent structural and aesthetic flaw. And that little crack, if you ignore it, can widen pretty quickly. Then you're looking at expensive repairs to stop water from getting underneath and making it worse.
And those patches never look right, do they?
Never. They're always visible. And if the damage is bad enough, you're looking at a full tear out and replacement.
Okay, so how do pavers change that equation? How do they survive the same movement that kills concrete?
This is why pavers are the clear winner on durability and climate resilience. They work on a principle of interdependence, not rigidity.
So lots of small pieces working together.
Exactly. They're smaller, interlocking units, and they sit on a specially prepared base of compacted aggregate. So when the soil underneath expands or shifts,
Which it always does here.
it always does, the individual stones are designed to flex. They move slightly against each other and absorb that stress across the whole system instead of concentrating it in one spot.
So instead of one giant break, you get a million tiny, invisible adjustments.
You got it. And that's why a properly installed paver driveway can also last 30 years or more. But it has that crucial built-in resilience. The design actually plans for movement.
That flexibility is a massive advantage. Okay, let's pivot to what most homeowners probably think about first. How it looks.
The aesthetics.
Yeah. Utility's one thing, but you want the front of your house to look amazing.
And on aesthetics, it's really not even a close competition. Concrete gives you a clean, uniform look. You can stamp it or stain it, but at the end of the day, it's a slab of concrete. It's functional, but it's rarely a standout design feature.
Whereas with pavers, you're basically talking about custom design, right?
Yes. Pavers are the aesthetic champion, hands down. They come in this incredible range of colors, shapes, patterns. You can get rustic cobblestone looks or super sleek, modern geometric tiles.
So you can match it to the style of the house.
Perfectly. You can create custom borders with different colors, intricate inlays. That level of detail really boosts curb appeal, especially in high-end neighborhoods.
That sounds great, but I can hear the homeowner's concern already. All those little pieces, all those joints. Doesn't that just mean more places for weeds and dirt to collect? Doesn't it sound like a maintenance nightmare?
That's a fair point, and it's a common fear. But it's very manageable. When pavers are installed correctly, the joints between them are filled with something called polymeric sand.
And what does that do?
It's a special fan with polymer that hardens when you wet it. So it locks the pavers in place and prevents the vast majority of weed growth. And then, periodic sealing helps too.
So sealing is the key to preventative maintenance.
It is. Sealing protects against stains and it keeps that joint sand stable. It makes the surface almost as low maintenance as concrete, but you keep all that flexibility.
Okay. Now we have to talk about the elephant in the room.
The initial investment. This is where concrete gets its one big win, the upfront cost.
So lay out the numbers for us.
A standard concrete driveway is generally going to run you somewhere between, say, $8 to $12 per square foot. It's a faster process, so the labor costs are lower.
That's pretty affordable. So what are we looking at for pavers?
Pavers are quite a bit more. You're typically looking at $15 to $25 per square foot.
Wow, so that could be double the cost or even more.
It can be. And that's because the material itself costs more, and the installation is extremely labor-intensive. Every single paver has to be laid by hand, leveled, and interlocked correctly. It's a craft.
So if your number one priority is the lowest possible price on day one, concrete is the choice.
It is. But as you've hinted, the true cost has to be measured over the life of the driveway. You need to think about the total cost of ownership over 25 or 30 years.
Right. The cheap install that costs a fortune to repair isn't actually cheap. So let's talk repairs. The ground shifts, I get a crack. How do I fix it?
And that is where pavers take a massive lead again. We've all seen it. Concrete repairs are almost always ugly and obvious.
Right, you get that scar that never quite matches the original color or texture.
Exactly. And if the damage is bad, you're facing a catastrophic replacement. Demolition, hauling all that waste away, pouring a whole new slab. It's hugely expensive and disruptive.
And with pavers, if I get a bad oil stain or a tree root pushes up one section.
The repair is surgical. It's so simple. You just remove the damaged or stained pavers. You don't have to touch the rest of the driveway.
And then you just put new ones in.
You put new ones in. The repair is quick, it's relatively inexpensive, and most importantly, it's invisible. Your driveway can look pristine for decades because you can fix flaws piece by piece.
That repairability is a huge factor in the return on investment. It's like you're lowering the risk of your whole investment.
And speaking of risk, that brings up another critical point, especially here in California. Water. Drainage.
Good point. How do they handle rain?
Well, traditional concrete is impermeable. It's a solid surface. So when it rains, all that water just sheets right off into the storm drain.
Which can cause erosion around the edges or puddling if the driveway isn't greeted perfectly.
Right. But with pavers, you have another option. You can use something called permeable pavers.
Okay, what's the difference there?
They're designed specifically to manage stormwater. They use wider joints filled with a special aggregate, and they sit on a porous base. The whole system is engineered to let water seep slowly through the driveway surface and back into the ground.
Ah, so instead of creating runoff, you're actually recharging the local groundwater.
Exactly. In a water-stressed place like this, that's a huge environmental benefit. It's a much more sustainable solution that concrete just can't offer.
So let's tie this all together for the listener. Based on the guide, it seems like a pretty clear verdict. Pavers win on durability because they flex.
Right.
They win on aesthetics because of the customization, on maintenance because of the easy repairs, and on drainage, especially with the permeable option. Concrete has one very strong win.
The upfront costs.
The upfront cost.
And that's the central finding. It forces you to redefine what value means. Yes, concrete is cheaper on day one, but the superior performance, the design flexibility, and the low-cost invisible repairs with pavers, that almost always outweighs the higher initial investment over the life of your home.
So for you, the homeowner, it's not really a short-term budget choice. It's a long-term engineering decision that's based on your specific lot, your soil, right here in Los Angeles. You're trading some initial savings for decades of peace of mind.
It's the difference between just building something and building something to last and add value.
Which leaves us with our final thought for you to mull over. If that higher initial cost of pavers is completely offset by avoiding the ugly, expensive, and stressful process of replacing a giant, cracked concrete slab 15 years from now, an event that would seriously hurt your home's value, how does that change what budget-friendly really means? Maybe the true cost of a driveway isn't what you pay on installation day, but what you avoid paying on repair day.